The phone call wasn't intended for me to hear, but when I heard Liam's honeyed whisper creeping through the bathroom door, my world abruptly shifted like a tightrope in mid-act. "Don't worry, she's clueless," he murmured, voice low and slick as oil. I froze, my fingers locked around the gears of a 19th century pocket watch I'd been coaxing back to life. The Chicago wind howled outside, rattling the windows of our 15th floor apartment, a 1,200 square foot cage with a view of the river snaking through the city's glowing skyline. It was October 2025, 35 degrees Fahrenheit, 35 degrees Fahrenheit, and the chill seeping through the glass matched the ice pooling in my gut. Who was he talking to? And why did clueless sound like a knife aimed at my back? I'm Roxanne Delaney, rocks to anyone who matters. 5 years ago, I was about 15 meters above ground with no safety net. My name was in lights across Las Vegas marquees. One terrible fall, a shattered ankle, and a surgeon's grim "you're done" later, and that life vanished. Now, at 32, I'm grounded in Chicago, piecing together broken clocks and teaching kids to flip in a crumbling community theater. I wear my old leather jacket like armor, scuffed and frayed from 1,000 nights under spotlights, and keep my shades on indoors because the world looks better tinted. My hands, calloused from years of gripping ropes, still itch for height, but I settle for the tick-tock of time instead. Life often presents us with a screwdriver when we yearn for a trapeze. Liam Carver, my husband, strode into the living room just as I snapped the watch case shut. 6'1" with brown hair curling like he'd stepped out of a magazine, he wore a gray suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent back in Nevada. The scent of sandalwood cologne trailed him, sharp and expensive, and he flashed that grin, the one that could melt ice off Lake Michigan. He leaned down, kissed my forehead, and it felt like a stamp. Property claimed. "Hey, babe," he said, voice smooth as velvet. "Are you keeping busy with your little projects?" Little projects? My jaw tightened. But I forced a smile, the kind you fake when you're balancing on a wire and the crowd's holding its breath. "Yes," I muttered. "It keeps me out of trouble." He didn't notice the edge in my tone. Liam never did. To him, I was the washed-up circus girl he'd rescued from a dead-end life, a charity case he'd polished into something presentable. We'd met 2 years ago at a bar downtown, me nursing a whiskey after a long shift, him charming me with tales of Broadway dreams and original scores. I fell for it. The late-night talks, the promises of a future where I'd shine again. Maybe not on a wire, but beside him. Now he's the rising star, scribbling music cajuic for theater bigwigs while I scrape by on $15 an hour at TikTok Haven, a dusty clock shop 2 miles from here. My other gig, teaching flips to kids in a theater 10 miles, 16K out, pays peanuts but keeps my soul from rusting. Liam covers the bills, sure, but he never lets me forget it. "You're lucky I gave you this life, Rox," he'd say, like I should kiss his feet for the privilege. Tonight, though, something was off. He tossed his keys onto the counter, metal clinking against granite, and headed straight for the bathroom, phone still in hand. I waited, ears straining over the hum of the radiator, until that whisper floated out again. "She's clueless." My heart raced, pounding with the intensity of a drum roll before a stunt. I set the watch down. Its steady tick-tick suddenly became too loud, and I crept toward the hall. The bathroom door was cracked, steam curling out from his shower, and I caught more. "Yeah, tomorrow night, I'll handle it." "Handle what? Me? Something else?" I backed off, palms sweaty, and sank onto the couch, staring at the river lights blinking through the window. The city sprawled out there, 2.7 million people, and I felt like the smallest speck in it. I tried to shake it off. Maybe it was work, some producer drama. Liam's been edgy lately, holed up in his office, scribbling notes, muttering about the big break. He'd landed a meeting with a New York hotshot last month and came home crowing about a deal that'd change everything. I'd grinned, proud, even poured him a scotch to celebrate. But now, that pride curdled. clueless. The word gnawed at me, sharp and jagged. I grabbed my phone, thumb hovering over Tessa's number. Tessa T-Bone Malone, my ride or die from the circus days, runs a dive bar called the Rusty Anchor 5 miles from here. She'd know if something was up. She always did. Instead, I stood, pacing the hardwood floor, boots scuffing the polish Liam insisted we keep spotless. The apartment screamed his taste. Sleek furniture, abstract art, a grand piano he played to impress guests. My touch was the clutter, the half-fixed clocks on the coffee table, and the faded circus poster I'd hung in the corner despite his eye rolls. I stopped by the window, breath fogging the glass, and watched a tugboat churn through the dark water below. Chicago's a beast of a city, all steel and wind, and I'd always loved its grit. But tonight, it felt like a trap. Liam emerged, towel around his waist, hair damp and tousled. "You okay, Rox?" he asked, casual as if he hadn't just whispered secrets behind my back. I nodded, throat tight. "Just tired," I lied. He shrugged, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and flopped onto the sofa, scrolling his phone. I watched him, the man I'd married, the one who'd promised me the world. His fingers tapped the screen, and I wondered whose name lit it up. It was definitely not mine. I turned back to the window, the cold pressing against my reflection. My instinct told me he was concealing something, and I wasn't one to remain silent as the rope unraveled beneath me. I'd fallen once, lost everything, but I'd clawed my way back. If Liam thought I'd stay clueless, he didn't know me at all. Tomorrow I'd find out. One way or another, I'd climb back to the top, even if it meant dragging him down with me. The next evening, I couldn't sit still, the echo of Liam's "she's clueless" gnawing at me like a splinter under a fingernail. I'd barely slept, replaying that hushed phone call until my head throbbed. The apartment felt smaller, the walls pressing in as I watched him saunter out the door in his tailored coat, claiming he had a late meeting with some theater folks. His farewell kiss hit me hard, and as soon as he left, I seized my leather jacket, shades, and keys. If he believed I would pretend to be his unaware wife as he weaved his web, he had forgotten who he was married to. I'd walked a wire blindfolded once. I could damn well follow a hunch through Chicago's concrete jungle. I parked my beat-up Honda Civic 5 miles southwest of our high-rise, pulling into the gravel lot of the Rusty Anchor, Tessa Malone's hidden bar nestled under an old railroad overpass. The neon sign flickered, buzzing like a dying fly, and the air smelled of stale beer and wet asphalt, a crisp 32 degrees Fahrenheit biting my cheeks. Inside, the place was a cave of dim lights and chipped wood, the kind of joint where secrets stuck to the walls. Tessa stood behind the bar, all 5 feet, 1.52 m of her, hair dyed firebrand red and spilling over a denim vest. She was mid-pour, whiskey glugging into a glass when she spotted me weaving through the crowd. Her grin flashed, wide and feral, and she hollered over the jukebox's wail, "Rox, get your ass over here!" I slid onto a stool, the vinyl creaking under me, and leaned in close as she slid the drink my way. "Tessa, I need you to level with me," I said, voice low. "Liam, have you seen him around?" She raised an eyebrow, wiping her hands on a rag, then leaned her elbows on the bar, her green eyes glinting like a cat's. "Funny you ask," she said. "Last night your boy was in here, cozy as hell, with some blonde in a red dress. Looked like they were rehearsing for a damn rom-com, hands all over each other." My stomach lurched, a cold fist squeezing my ribs, but I kept my face steady. "Blonde, huh? What else?" Tessa smirked, tapping a finger on the bar. Tall, maybe 5 feet, 1.52 m9, voice like she's belting Broadway show tunes, she kept giggling at his nonsense. They left together around midnight. I downed the whiskey in one gulp, the burn chasing the chill from my bones. I looked radiant in a red dress. Broadway voice. My mind flitted, conjuring up a vision I wished to avoid. I was reminded of Liam's late nights, his smug, Meetings and the way he had started locking his phone. Thanks, T-Bone, I muttered, sliding a crumpled 5 across the bar. She grabbed my wrist before I could stand, her grip like iron. Are you okay, Rox? You appear poised to strike a wall. I forced a laugh, sharp and hollow. I'm fine. I simply need to discover the depth of this enigma. She nodded, letting go, but her eyes lingered, worry creasing her brow. Tessa knew me too well and had hauled me out of worse pits than this back when I was a broken heap in a Vegas hospital bed. The next day, I dragged myself to the community theater, a sagging brick relic 10 miles, 16 kms from downtown, where I taught flips to a dozen kids every afternoon. The place smelled of mildew and sawdust, the stage creaking under my boots as I set up mats. My head was still spinning from Tessa's bombshell when Miles Ortiz rolled in, my star pupil, all 5 feet 1.52 mm of wiry teenage energy. At 17, with glasses thick as bottle bottoms, he lugged a backpack stuffed with gadgets and grinned at me like I was some kind of superhero. Hey, Rox, you look rough, he said, dropping his bag. Rough's my default now, kid, I shot back, ruffling his hair. He'd been a shy 12-year-old when I first taught him a backflip. Now he was a tech whiz who'd rather hack code than climb rope. I hesitated, then crouched beside him, keeping my voice low as the other kids trickled in. Miles, I need a favor. Off the books. His eyes lit up, conspiratorial. Name it. I swallowed hard, the words tasting bitter. Hack into Liam's email. I think he's screwing me over and I need proof. Miles didn't blink. Husband trouble, say less. He pulled out his laptop, fingers flying over keys while I paced, pretending to adjust the mat. 20 minutes later, he whistled softly. Jackpot, Rox. Check this. I peered over his shoulder, and my blood turned to ice. There it was, an email thread from Liam to somebody named R. Kessler, Broadway producer, time-stamped 3 days ago. Attached was a PDF titled The Wire Dancer, my script, my life, every damn word I'd scribbled in a spiral notebook 3 years back about my circus days, the thrill of the wire, the fall that broke me, the fight to stand again. Liam's message read, original work by Liam Carver. Let's talk about $2 million USD. The sum of $2 million is at stake. My story, my soul, sold under his name. Miles scrolled further, revealing more. She'll never know. She's too busy with her clocks to notice. I gripped the edge of the stage, knuckles white, vision blurring. That son of a bitch, I hissed. Miles shut the laptop, glancing up. What now, boss? I straightened, fury boiling over the shock. Now I will bury him, I said, my voice trembling but firm. Print it out, print everything. He nodded, scrambling to obey, and I stormed outside, the 28-degree air slapping my face as I sucked in ragged breaths. The theater's faded marquee loomed above, mocking me with its silence. I'd poured my heart into that script, a piece of me Liam had no right to touch, and he'd turned it into his golden ticket. Worse, he was laughing about it, screwing some blonde while I played the fool. That night, Liam waltzed in at 11 p.m., tie loose, humming like he'd won the lottery. I waited on the couch, the printed emails clutched in my lap, a ticking bomb. He tossed his coat over a chair, grinning. Hey, did you have a productive day? I stood, slow and deliberate, and flung the papers at his feet, pages scattering across the hardwood. Explain this, I said, my voice sharp. He froze, eyes darting to the mess, then back to me. His grin faltered, but he recovered fast, chuckling like I'd told a terrible joke. Rox, come on. You didn't write that. I polished it. I made it something real. You should thank me. Thank you? I stepped closer, fists clenched. That's my life, Liam. My fall has left me with scars. You stole it. I casually hugged her, leaning against the counter, as if we were debating dinner plans. And I made it worth $2 million. You're welcome. I lunged, ready to claw that smirk off his face, but stopped an inch short, breath heaving. "You're a thief," I spat, "and I'm done being your doormat." He rolled his eyes, turning away. "Sleep it off, Rox. You'll see I'm right." I didn't sleep. I grabbed my jacket and bolted, the 20-degree wind tearing at me as I hit the street. I drove my Honda with no destination, fueled by fear and rage. Tessa's blonde, Miles's proof, and Liam's betrayal, it all crashed together like a circus tent collapsing. He'd taken my past, my trust, everything, and dangled it like a prize. However, my journey was far from over. I had previously fallen, reached my lowest point, and managed to climb out. This time I'd drag him down with me, and he'd never see it coming. As I emerged from the apartment, the headlights of the Honda pierced the Chicago night, accompanied by the screeching of tires on the frost-covered pavement. The temperature had dropped to 20 degrees Fahrenheit, C7 DEC, and the wind howled like a pack of wolves through the city's steel canyons. Liam's words looped in my skull. "You'll see I'm right," each syllable a fresh cut over the raw wound of his betrayal. I'd stormed out with nothing but my jacket, keys, and those damning emails crumpled in my pocket, my breath fogging the windshield as I gripped the steering wheel hard enough to leave marks. He believed that I would retreat, clinging to his crumbs. But I wasn't the broken circus girl he'd pegged me for. I had previously survived a fall of approximately 50 feet, cm. I could certainly ascend once more and bury him beneath the debris. I didn't know where I was going until the neon glow of the Rusty Anchor loomed ahead, a beacon in the dark 5 miles from that suffocating high-rise. As I parked, the gravel crunched under my boots and the cold gnawed at my leather-like teeth. Inside, the bar was a haze of cigarette smoke and low murmurs, the jukebox crooning some mournful country tune. Tessa spotted me instantly, her red hair aflare in the gloom, and she waved me over with a bottle of bourbon already in hand. I slumped onto a stool, the wood groaning under me, and she poured without asking, sliding the glass across the sticky bar. "You look like hell, Rox," she said, voice rough but warm. I downed the shot, the heat searing my throat, and slammed the glass down. "Leon's not just cheating," I said, pulling the emails from my pocket and flattening them out. "He stole my script, Tessa, The Wire Dancer, $2 million, and he's passing it off as his." Her eyes expanded, then contracted, as a tempest intensified in their wake. She snatched the papers, scanning the lines, her jaw tightening with every word. "That slimy bastard," she growled, tossing them back. "What's the play?" I leaned in, the bourbon loosening the knot in my chest. "I want him to choke on it," I said. "Everything he's built, his precious reputation, I want it gone." Tessa grinned, slow and wicked, akin to a wolf baring its fangs. "We'll use what he loves most, the stage, against him." "The stage? He's all about the spotlight, right? Let's turn it into a trap." My heartbeat accelerated like a flickering flame. "Go on," I said, and she leaned closer, voice dropping to a conspirator's whisper. "I'll set up a fake audition at the theater, invite his big-shot producer, the arts crowd, and everyone. He'll strut out there, thinking he's king, and you'll rip the crown off his head." I could see Liam obliviously preening under the lights as I detonated his perfect little grenade. It wasn't enough to just catch him. I needed him to feel the fall the way I had. "I like it," I said, a grin tugging at my lips for the first time in hours. "But I need more ammo." Tessa nodded, pouring me another shot. "Get Miles on it. That kid could hack Fort Knox if you asked." I clinked my glass against the bottle, the plan taking shape like a tightrope stretching out before me. Step 1, evidence. Step 2, execution. Liam wouldn't know what hit him. The next morning, I skipped the clock shop and headed straight for the financial district, a mile from home, where glass towers stabbed the gray sky. Vivian Hart's office sat on the 22nd floor of a sleek building, all polished marble and hushed voices. She was 45 years old, her black suit immaculate, and her espresso steaming in a tiny cup as she ushered me into a leather chair. I'd met her once at a theater fundraiser Liam dragged me to, and her no-nonsense vibe had stuck with me. "Talk," she said, her eyes sharp behind silver-rimmed glasses. I laid it out. The affair, the theft, the emails. And my voice was steady despite the tremor in my hands. She sipped her coffee, flipping through the papers I'd brought, then set them down with a nod. "He's an idiot," she said flatly. "Legally, we can nail him for intellectual property theft. I'll craft a case that will cause him significant harm. But if you want real damage, make him expose himself first. Public humiliation's a better weapon than any courtroom." I leaned forward, hooked. "How?" Vivian smirked, revealing a rare crack in her Ice Queen armor. "Get undeniable proof, something he can't talk his way out of, then stage it, literally. Hit him where he lives, in front of his world. I'll handle the legal fallout." My mind raced, Tessa's idea meshing with Vivian's ruthlessness. "I've got a kid who can dig deeper," I said, "and a friend who can set the scene." She nodded, scribbling a note. "Good. Bring me everything. We'll bury him." By afternoon, I was back at the community theater, the air thick with dust and the ghosts of old shows. Miles met me on the stage, his laptop glowing in the dim light, and I didn't waste time. "Liam's a liar and a thief," I said, handing him the emails. "I need more. Texts, calls, anything." He grinned, cracking his knuckles. "On it, rocks." 30 minutes later, he spun the screen toward me and my breath caught. The display illuminated with texts from Liam to Chloe, the timestamps dating back months. "She's a dead weight," he'd written 2 weeks ago. "She's a broken bird I can't let go of. Once this deal concludes, I plan to move on." Another message I received last night said, "$2 million for you, babe. Rox'll never see it coming." Fury and hurt twisted together in my chest, but Miles was far from finished. He pulled up a voice memo, Liam's smug drawl spilling out. "She's too busy with her junk clocks to notice. I own this story now." I slammed my fist on the stage, the thud echoing through the empty seats. "That's it," I said, voice shaking but firm. "He's dead." Miles looked up, eyes wide. "What's the plan?" I paced, the pieces clicking into place. "I rewrite The Wire Dancer," I said. "Add a twist where the hero turns on the thief in front of everyone. Tessa is setting up a fake audition. You get me every scrap of dirt you can find. We'll project it all right there on stage." He nodded, already typing. "I'll have a gold mine by tomorrow." That night, alone in the apartment, with Liam still out working, I sat at the kitchen table, a blank notebook open and a pen in hand. The river glittered beyond the window, a black ribbon under the 15-degree chill, and the silence pressed down like a weight. I thought of the wire, the rush of air beneath me, the moment I'd lost it all. Liam thought he'd caged me. He clipped my wings for good, but he didn't know the first thing about falling or what it takes to climb back up. I started writing, my words sharp and fast, turning my pain into a weapon. The stage would be mine again, and this time I'd make sure he felt every inch of the drop. The night of the ambush crept up fast. A frigid Saturday in late October, the Chicago air dipping to 18 degrees Fahrenheit, KD8 DC, and clawing at my skin as I pulled into the community theater's lot 10 miles, 16K from downtown. My Honda rattled to a stop, headlights catching the faded marquee swaying in the wind, its letters spelling out, "Audition, The Wire Dancer," in Tessa's sloppy handwriting. I'd spent the last 3 days rewriting my script, turning it into a guillotine with Liam's name on the blade, and now the moment was here. My pulse hammered at 120 beats a minute, a drum roll echoing the nights I'd stepped onto a wire, but this time the stakes were higher than any 50-foot drop. I adjusted my leather jacket, slipped on my shades, and tucked a fedora low over my eyes, a shadow ready to steal the spotlight. Inside, the theater buzzed with anticipation, a patchwork crowd of 50 filling the rickety seats, critics in tweed, artsy types with scarves, and Robert Kessler, the Broadway producer, front row center in a navy suit, his silver hair gleaming under the house lights. Tessa had skillfully crafted a story about Liam's big reveal to entice them to this location, her connections in the bar exerting a powerful influence that I dared not question. She caught my eye from the aisle, red hair wild, and flashed a thumbs up before melting into the shadows. Miles crouched backstage, laptop hooked to a projector, his fingers poised over the keys like a sniper. Vivian waited in the wings, her black suit a stark silhouette. Espresso swapped for a legal pad bristling with notes. My crew was prepared and ready. All I needed to do was press the trigger. Liam strutted out at 7 p.m. sharp, basking in the applause like a king taking his throne. He wore a charcoal blazer, hair slicked back, that million-dollar grin plastered across his face as he waved to the crowd. "Thanks for coming," he boomed, voice smooth as silk. "Tonight you'll see The Wire Dancer, my original masterpiece. A story of grit, glory, and redemption." My stomach churned, bile rising at the lie, but I held my ground behind the curtain, clutching the revised script. He'd rehearsed with a local cast all week, oblivious to the switch I'd slipped into the director's hands, a friend of Tessa's who'd grinned at the chaos I promised. The lights dimmed, the stage glowed, and the play began. My words twisted into his vanity until the final act loomed. I stepped out as the supporting player, a wire walker's shadow in the script, my boots thudding on the warped boards. The cast froze, sensing the shift, and Liam's eyes narrowed from center stage, a flicker of unease breaking his poise. I peeled off the fedora, tossed it aside, and faced the crowd, my voice cutting through the hush like a blade. "This isn't his story," I asserted emphatically. "It's mine, Roxanne Delaney's. I wrote The Wire Dancer. Each stride, each tumble, and each mark left a lasting legacy. He stole it, slapped his name on it, and sold it for $2 million. Gasps rippled through the seats, heads swiveling to Liam, who laughed sharp and forced. "She's delusional," he barked, stepping forward. "Rox, sit down. You're embarrassing yourself." I didn't flinch. Delusional? I turned to Miles and nodded. The projector hummed to life, and there it was, splashed 10 feet, cuck-off 3M, tall on the back wall. His email to Kessler, original work by Liam Carver dated 2 weeks ago. The crowd murmured, chairs creaking as they leaned in. "That's my script," I said, pointing. "My life. And here's what he really thinks of me." Miles cued the texts, Chloe's name glowing in bold. "She's a dead weight. She is a broken bird. 2 mil and you, babe?" Whispers turned to shouts, outrage bubbling up, and Liam's face drained to ash. "This is fake," he yelled, lunging for the stage edge. "She's lying." "Lying?" I stepped closer, voice steady despite the fire in my chest. "You recorded yourself, genius." Miles hit play, and Liam's smug drawl filled the theater. "She's too busy with her junk clocks to notice. I own this story now." The room erupted, Kessler bolting upright, his face a mask of fury. "Carver, what the hell is this?" he demanded, voice booming over the chaos. Liam stammered, hands flailing. "It's not what it looks like. I can explain." However, the crowd had reached its peak, with jeers escalating and phones blazing as they captured the moment. I stood tall, the lights hot on my skin, and locked eyes with him. "You don't own me," I said, quiet but lethal. "Not my story, not my soul. You're finished." He lunged, wild-eyed, aiming to shove me off stage, but Tessa materialized, all 5 feet, 1.5211 of her, and planted herself between us, shoving him back with a snarl. "Back off, pretty boy," she growled, and he stumbled, crashing into a prop table that splintered under his weight. The audience roared, some laughing, some shouting, a circus of their making. Kessler stormed the aisle, barking into his phone. "Deal's off, Carver! You're a scammer!" Critics scribbled furiously, and I caught Vivian smirk from the wings, her pen slashing across her pad like a sword. Liam scrambled to his feet, his tie askew as he screamed over the din. "You regret this rocks, all of you!" I turned to the crowd, chest heaving, and raised my arms, a wire walker reclaiming her perch. "That's the real ending," I said, the words ringing out. "No redemption for thieves." Applause broke like thunder, ragged and fierce, and for the first time in years, I felt the rush of the spotlight, pure and mine. Liam bolted, shoving through the cast to the exit, his blazer flapping like a torn flag. Tessa clapped my shoulder, Miles whooped from backstage, and Vivian gave a curt nod, already dialing her next move. The theater shook with noise, a standing ovation for the wreckage I'd wrought, and I stood there, soaked in it, the weight of his lies lifting off my shoulders. As the crowd spilled out into the 15-degree night, I lingered on the stage, the lights fading to a soft hum. My ankle ached, a ghost of that old fall, but it didn't matter. I'd climbed higher tonight than any wire, and Liam was the one crashing down. The trap had sprung, the curtain had fallen, and for once, I wasn't the one left broken in the dark. The theater emptied into the Chicago night, the crowd's chatter fading into the 15-degree chill as car engines growled to life beyond the creaky doors. I stood alone on the stage, the spotlight's dying glow warm on my face, my boots planted firm on the boards that had just borne witness to Liam's downfall. The air still crackled with the echo of applause, a wild, jagged sound that had washed over me like a wave breaking a dam. My chest rose and fell, steady now, the adrenaline draining into a quiet I hadn't felt in years. I'd done it. I'd turned his stage into my weapon, and he'd run from it like a rat from a sinking ship. But this wasn't the end. Not yet. The curtain had fallen, but the real show, the one where I rebuilt my life, was just beginning. By Monday, the city buzzed with the fallout. Tessa texted me a grainy video from the audition, already viral on X, racking up 200,000 views in 48 hours. "Local playwright exposed as fraud," screamed the headlines, plastered across every arts blog from Chicago to New York. Liam's face, pale and panicked, stared out from grainy stills, his smug grin replaced by a snarl as he shoved past the cast. Kessler's public statement struck with force. "Carver's deal is terminated. We don't work with thieves." Vivian called me that morning, her voice crisp over the line as I sipped coffee in the apartment's empty kitchen. "He's toast, Rox," she said. "I've filed the suit. The case involves intellectual property theft, damages, and other related issues. You're looking at a minimum of $500,000. I smirked into my mug, the river glinting beyond the window under a 25-degree dawn. "Make it hurt," I told her, and she chuckled, a rare sound from the Ice Queen. "Oh, it will." Liam slunk back that afternoon, tie gone, hair a mess, eyes hollow, like he'd aged a decade overnight. He found me packing, my clocks and clothes stuffed into cardboard boxes, the circus poster already rolled up under my arm. "Rox," he croaked, hovering in the doorway. "We can fix this. I'll cut you in, I swear." I didn't look up, taping a box shut with a screech that drowned his plea. "Cut me in?" I replied, my voice low and cold. "Do you mean to give me scraps of what's mine?" I asked in a low, cold voice. He stepped closer, desperation stinking off him like cheap cologne. "I'm sorry, okay? I messed up. Don't do this." I straightened, meeting his gaze, and saw nothing but a hollow shell where the man I'd loved used to be. "You're not sorry," I said. "You're scared. You have every reason to be. Get out." He flinched, hands raised, then shuffled away, the door clicking shut behind him. I exhaled, the silence settling like dust, and hauled my boxes to the Honda. That chapter was closed. 2 weeks later, I moved into a drafty loft in Logan Square, 5 miles from the Loop, a 900-square-foot space with exposed brick and a view of snow-dusted rooftops. The rent was $1,200 a month, which is steep, but mine was paid with the clock shop gig and my theater classes. I set up a workbench in the corner, tools scattered beside a dozen broken timepieces, waiting for my hands to breathe life back into them. Rox's Revival, I called it, a name scratched on a scrap of wood above the door. There was no grand opening, no fanfare, just me and the steady tick-tick of gears, a rhythm that felt like home. The kids at the theater noticed the shift, Miles especially, grinning as he flipped across the mats. "You're back, Rox," he said one day, and I ruffled his hair. "Never left, kid." Vivian's lawsuit had a significant impact on Liam. By December, with the temperature plunging to 10 degrees Fahrenheit, 8.cm12 DTC, the court awarded me $500,000, every penny of it carved from his ego. He called once, voice slurring through the line, begging me to drop it. "You've got no career left," I told him, staring out at the icy Chicago skyline. "Live with it." I hung up, the phone cold in my hand, and poured the money into the loft, the shop, and a new class for teens at the theater. Tessa swung by that week, hauling a six-pack of beer and a guitar she strummed while we laughed over the wreckage. "You're a legend now," she said, clinking her bottle against mine. "T-Bone, I'm just me," I shot back, but her grin stuck with me, a spark in the dark. The media frenzy faded by January, but the story lingered in whispers at every bar and stage in town. Liam vanished, some said to L.A., others to obscurity, a ghost of the man who thought he could own me. Kessler sent me an email, curt but intriguing. "Got a script worth pitching? I owe you one." I didn't reply just yet. The theater remained my anchor, the children's laughter filling the gaps he'd left. And Miles set up a projector for our next show, a new piece I'd written about a woman who flips tables, not wires. Vivian stopped by once, trading her suit for jeans, and watched the class with a rare smile. "You're tougher than I thought," she said, and I shrugged. Had to be. One night, as snow piled 6 inches deep outside, I sat on the loft's fire escape, the 5-degree air stinging my lungs, a blanket around my shoulders. The city sprawled below with lights blinking through the storm, and I thought of the wire, the fall, and the years I'd spent clawing back. Liam had tried to cage me, to steal my wings and call it mercy, but I'd broken free, turned his spotlight into my torch. Tess's bar hummed 5 miles away. Miles worked diligently on a new project, and Vivian prepared for her next case. The fight fortified the unlikely family. I pulled the blanket tighter, the cold a sharp reminder I was alive, and whispered into the wind, "I'm done being your shadow, Liam. The world is my stage now." The next morning, I woke to sunlight slicing through the frost on my window, a new script half finished on the table. The clock shop buzzed with orders, the theater packed with kids dreaming big, and I felt it. A steady beat under my ribs, not fear or rage, but something stronger. I'd fallen, sure, but I'd landed on my feet, and this time, no one could pull me down. The city roared outside, 2.7 million souls, and one of them mine, free at last to write the ending I deserved.